Dear listeners, be honest. How many of you have used ChatGPT for your last assignment? Or perhaps for literature research? Or even for an exam preparation? I mean, artificial intelligence is omnipresent and has become really popular among students. But what exactly is AI? What are its risks? What impact does AI have on students' lives and future careers? How will its influence evolve? To help us answer these questions, we're joined by Professor Markus Langer, an expert in human-computer interaction from the University of Freiburg. He will share insights into the opportunities AI creates, the challenges we need to tackle as these tools become more integrated into our lives, as well as possible solutions and a future outlook. My name is Elaida. By the way, I'm also a student studying at the Aalen University of Applied Sciences, and I will be guiding you through this episode. Welcome to today's episode of Sustainable Voices, where ideas for a better future speak loud. And now, let's welcome Professor Markus Langer.
Markus Langer, I'm a professor at the University of Freiburg for work and organizational psychology, actually. And most of my research is on human-computer interaction. How do people work better with AI-based systems in different contexts, like hiring, but also medical decision-making or psychotherapeutical decision-making. So yeah, that's just in short.
Do you personally use different AI systems as well, and which ones?
I do. I mean, I usually write myself and then I just give it to those texts, to those large language models to say, hey, how does this sound better and not so German? So just make it shorter, make it sound better. This is just one of the best users of those things, I think.
It's quite surprising to hear an academic expert say that he uses AI himself to improve his writing. So, what about the benefits, especially for students?
So, if we talk about students in particular, I do think those systems are very good in enhancing your writing skills. So, not just in English, but also in German. And it also gives this kind of a creative partner that is always accessible, that you can always ask for feedback, that you can always ask for little ideas or just for, hey, I want to write this and that, but I don't find a good way of saying it. And I think that is really, really nice for students' lives. And I think it's in general with those tools, it depends a lot on what you want to achieve.
So, AI can be a great creative partner. But there are also concerns about how it might affect students' learning processes, particularly when it comes to acquiring core skills, like writing. Let's jump back to the interview.
And what do you think about the critique that when students use ChatGPT, for example, to write essays, like even if it's not about what's in the essay, but just for better writing, what do you think about the critique that then maybe students won't learn on how to write good?
Yeah, I mean, that's a valid point, I think. The more you just outsource to those tools, the less you may know it yourself. So I think one basic point on how to use AI, I think, is if you do not know what is good, if you do not know what is your goal, and so if you do not have expertise yourself, what comes out of you and this system interacting together will be worse. So it depends not only on the system and its capabilities, it also depends on the human and their capabilities. So at some point, it makes sense to also learn for yourselves what is a good text, what is not a good text. And AI can also help in learning that. I mean, it can give you some insights on what makes a good text, how to structure a text. And then you can, with your own expertise and your own, what you bring to the table in this human AI interaction, make it even better. But if you just rely on it and you don't think for yourselves anymore, then I also think it can become problematic.
So it's kind of like a symbiosis when both systems work, it's a good outcome, but
Mhm.
if both don't work good together, then
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very good summary. Yeah.
Sounds like a classic garbage in, garbage out principle. Let's take a quick detour to explore what AI exactly is and how it processes and gathers information. An AI system is a machine-based system that processes input to produce outputs, such as predictions, recommendations, or decisions, which can influence the physical or digital world. These systems vary in how much they can adapt and act independently after being implemented. AI systems can generally be classified as either black box or white box models. Black box models are like a mystery box. You can see what goes in and what comes out, but you have no idea what happens in between. For example, ChatGPT is a black box model. You give it a question, it gives you an answer. But the steps it takes to come up with that answer are hidden from us. White box models are the opposite. They're fully transparent, meaning you can exactly see how they work. They follow clear rules, and you can even look into the details, like the settings and parameters that they use to make these outputs. For example, a decision tree used in data analysis is a white box model. You can trace each step of how the model comes to a decision, from splitting the data into categories to making the final prediction. It's important to note that most of the AI we interact with today operates as a black box model. These systems rely on a vast amount of data pulled from the internet and, of course, the input you provide them. However, it's crucial to remember that these informations these models are trained on and the data they use can sometimes be flawed or biased. The output they provide is not guaranteed to be the absolute truth. Rather, it's based on probabilities and patterns. In other words, the answer you get is most likely response according to the data, but it's not necessarily a fact. So that's why it's essential to approach AI-generated outputs critically and not take them at face value. Professor Langer also used an example to illustrate the challenges of biases.
I mean, if I think about the example that I just brought, like orientation of what should I study, it is easy to imagine that those systems could recommend classical male jobs for male students and classical female jobs for female students. That is this one of these ideas of bias, or when you're in hiring, that male applicants have advantages for male jobs, whereas female applicants have advantages for female jobs. That is this topic of biases. And it is easy that those biases are reflected in AI outputs. And I do trust most developers who develop AI-based systems that they are aware of that problem. Many of them that I know are actively engaging in trying to prevent those biases from happening. It's not easy, and it's actually so hard that it's impossible to really remove all the possible biases from the data, from the outputs. But it's a very active field of research where it is in the end also, again, this idea of a system together with a human can hopefully detect those biases and do not fall into a trap of, okay, now this is a recommendation that is somehow biased.
However, not only biases is an issue, but also the risk of relying too much on AI.
I mean, overly relying already is a risk. If you rely too much on anyone and anything, it always has the danger of disappointment. If you rely too much on AI, you may be disappointed at some point when you realize, okay, there were some errors in that text, there were some errors in that recommendation that I did not detect because I overly relied on that thing. So over-reliance is definitely one of the big risks that we have to consider in any case where an AI is used for high-risk contexts.
Let me quickly explain where high-risk AI comes from. When we talk about high-risk AI, we're referring to the EU AI Act. This act is quite new. It entered into force in 2024. It sorts AI system into different risk levels, and high-risk ones are things like AI used in healthcare or transportation, where lives could be at stake. These systems have to meet really strict rules, like being transparent, having human oversight, and being accountable for their decisions, to make sure they're safe and reliable. Let's dive back into the conversation.
Another risk, if it's a psychological risk, is, for instance, that your job that you do becomes boring. It becomes worse by using an AI. You can easily imagine a day where you just sit there, you just look at outputs of AI, and in the end of the day, the only thing that you did was you looked over outputs of AI. You basically were the human that just watched the AI doing its job. That doesn't sound like a very nice job to me. And that's definitely also a risk of using AI in too many situations. It comes with the risk of reducing jobs, of making jobs worse. And the third risk that I could come up with is the question of who's responsible for bad outcomes happening, but also for good outcomes happening. If you overly rely on AI and something bad happens, then you may question yourself, I was not really to blame for this. It was actually the AI. It did make the mistake. I couldn't even know that it made the mistake. So it's not my fault. Clearly, in the end, you will probably be the one who is made responsible and not the AI. But just by using these tools, you can just feel less responsible for negative, but also for positive things that come out. If you imagine, okay, you're now a programmer, you use an AI, and in the end you have a nice code that is running, but you can't really say it's your code. It's just, yeah, the AI produced that code. The only thing I did was a little bit of prompt engineering. Do I really feel proud about this anymore? I'm not sure. And this is also one of those psychological risks.
Okay, let's quickly recap. Most systems we use are black box models. Powerful, but not transparent. Professor Langer highlights how AI can enhance writing and creativity, but warns against over-reliance, which can limit learning and responsibility. I mean, imagine a job where all you do is monitor AI outputs. It's not exactly inspiring, right? He has mentioned that bias in AI, like gendered career suggestions, is a real challenge. High-risk AI, like in healthcare, is regulated under the EU AI Act to ensure safety and transparency. And there's also the challenge of accountability. When mistakes happen, it's easy to blame the AI, but humans often remain responsible for the outputs. After diving deep into the risks and challenges of AI, let's shift focus on the positive side. How can we tackle these risks and make the most of AI's potential? Professor Langer has some great insights on how transparency, education, and informed trust can help us use AI responsibly and effectively. Let's hear what he has to say.
I think it's helpful for people to be able to understand for what those kind of systems are good and for what not. And this is basically trying to bring people in an informed trust situation. So trust itself is not what we want. We want informed trust, that people know, okay, I can trust because this is what I expect, because I think the system is good for the task. And not just, yeah, I trust because, yeah, I feel like it, or I don't have time to think about it too much.
The concept of informed trust in AI is a critical point to consider. It emphasizes not just blindly trusting technology, but rather understanding its limitations and capabilities. This approach ensures individuals make well-informed decisions about when and how to use AI systems effectively.
And how do you see all of this evolve over the next decade?
What will probably happen next is that we will see a lot of uncertainty. It's already there in Europe, at least in Europe or in the EU. A lot of uncertainty of what comes now with the AI Act being enforced. Right now, we just have the AI Act, and everybody knows that it will come, but it's not really clear what it will mean.
The upcoming AI Act represents a bold step, but its practical implications remain ambiguous. Will these regulations slow down innovation, or will they help guide AI development in a thoughtful and responsible way?
And so it's right now is a little bit of uncertainty, and in 2 years we will see if we have developed good standards that then companies will follow. I can also easily imagine a future where we roll back AI regulation because we realized, okay, it doesn't really help. It just makes things much more complicated and we do not benefit. But I can also see a future where AI regulation helps also innovation by making people think more about, okay, how do I make those systems really abiding those standards, those requirements? And so I think, yeah, in the next, maybe not 10 years, but it's definitely the next 3-4 years, we'll see a lot of discussion on how do we regulate, how do we responsibly use AI, and then yeah, it's what happens from a technical point of view that is really hard to predict. I'm very guilty of not predicting the future of the technical development very good because in I think 2020 or something I said, come on, we will not be talking to AI in a real natural way in the next 10 years. And what did we do? It took 2 years.
AI is evolving at an incredibly fast pace. Just think about how quickly we went from doubting we talk to AI naturally to doing it in just 2 years. This rapid change is raising real concerns for students and professionals.
Especially for students who didn't really start a job right now, are really concerned about, okay, what are the skills I really need? And what can I expect from my future job?
I completely agree that this fear has always been there, starting from 1870 or whatever, whenever the Industrial Revolution started, of people thinking, oh, is my job really necessary in 10 years? And many jobs got lost. I mean, there are many examples of jobs that got lost over time, and it already happens also in the area of where can I use, I don't know, ChatGPT or other large language models, where you see people being replaced or you need less people for the same jobs than before. I think what you said about, okay, what are the skills now that I need in future? That's the entirely correct question to ask. What is it that distinguishes the human capabilities from the system capabilities also in future?
All students out there listening to this, remember this. Your creativity is your superpower. Unlike AI, you have the unique ability to think outside the box and come up with original ideas and solve problems in a way no machine ever could. Your emotional intelligence allows you to connect with others, build relationships, and navigate complex situations with empathy. Skills that are invaluable in any career. While AI can be a powerful tool, your creativity, intuition, and ability to adapt is what sets you apart. So, stay aware of your creative potential and let it shine. It's what makes you truly irreplaceable in any tech-driven world. Or am I wrong?
I also think that if we automate all of that, then everything really sounds very similar. And I don't know if we want that. There is this fascinating study that shows that creative people who post pictures on Instagram and other websites, they became much more efficient with AI. They produce much more content, but the content they produce is more homogeneous. Everything looks a little bit similar. And it's still the case that only some of those pictures are really, really engaging with people. Only some of them are really liked a lot. So it's good to think of that in this way, that even in future, if everybody uses those generative AI models for whatever reason, it takes human input, it takes human evaluation of what is good, what is not good, what do other people want to make it really great.
So you feel like we can use AI as a perfect tool to make us an expert in like our job, but the requirements and the ideas and the personality still comes from the human being.
I do think so. And I can clearly see situations where you would say, hey, we don't want humans being involved in those tasks. I mean, there are also situations where humans do not do these tasks pretty good. Or there are situations where we do not have humans available for some kind of tasks. I mean, uh, in many countries in the world, not only in Germany, we are seeking people that do jobs that either nobody wants to do anymore, or where there is not enough people, not enough humans to be able to conduct these tasks. In these situations, there's sometimes not even the question of, hey, does AI replace a human being? The better question is, can an AI replace a human being? Is it possible to integrate AI in a way that we do need less people here? I mean, the classical example for that is maybe in the healthcare sector, where you need so many additional people actually working there, that it would be actually pretty nice if we could say, hey, it's pretty nice to have an AI here and it works pretty good and it's not risky, it's not, I don't know, endangering anyone. So in these cases would be actually the question of, hey, where can we use AI in an effective way that we do not need those people that we do not have anyways?
It's important to emphasize that the goal of AI isn't to replace humans. It's to provide support, enabling us to direct human effort and talent where it's needed the most. At the end of our interview, Professor Langer shared valuable tips and potential solutions for addressing the issues we discussed in this episode.
As a summary, I really think those systems are tools, and every tool can be used in a good and a bad way. That's just a simple fact. It's technology, it can either be good or it can be bad. And knowing how to use it for the good and for your own advantage, that's a very, very helpful skill and competence. So really, I would say one important competence is just to know how to at least stay up to date you don't need to be up to date on a daily basis in a way like, okay, I need to be on top of everything, because that's, I think, impossible. So many things develop and so many things happen, but at least from time to time, it's important to try out new tools, see what they can do, what they cannot do, talk to your friends, talk to your colleagues about what they have made experiences with AI-based tools. Because just as a community, I think we can learn what is useful, what is not so useful.
So remember that you have to stay up to date.
In the end, I think it's also still very important to realize that I tell my students usually, I'm sorry, but understanding something and learning something, it has to, you have to suffer a little bit. It has to be some kind of effort. If you do something completely effortless, then it's probably not really good. Just, I mean, you can think of a bachelor thesis or any kind of thing that you have to write. If you just outsource that to a very good working LLM model in the next 2 years, then you're finished, you're done, you maybe even get a good grade for it. All is nice. But did you yourself really learn anything more than, okay, I can do a prompt here and I will get something out of it and then I'm done. That doesn't sound like effort. And this also doesn't sound like you can do something better now. It's important to realize that anybody in this world can now use an AI to do anything. And what distinguishes you from those other people who use those AI-based systems? It is you, your competencies, your own skills that distinguish you from those other people. And this is, I think, what people can focus on. To learn their own competencies, to know what they're good at, and to use those skills, even though I cannot tell what are now important skills for in 2 years or in 3 years.
Today's episode delved into the integration of AI in academic and professional settings, underscoring its dual nature as a tool that can either enhance or undermine human capabilities. Professor Langer advises students to balance their reliance on AI with continuous learning and skill development, ensuring they remain adaptable in a rapidly evolving landscape. For all ChatGPT lovers out there, just like Professor Langer said, you can keep using AI as a tool, but it's important to inform yourself and be up to date. A gentle reminder to everyone who's listening, whether you're an AI enthusiast, a student who has started exploring the possibilities of those tools, or you're undecided yet. Challenges and struggles are an integral part of the learning process, and true success comes from the effort you put into it. Learning involves dedication and personal growth, not simply replicating what AI provides. Thanks for listening to Sustainable Voices. Let your voice drive change. If you like this podcast, check out the other episodes of Sustainable Voices.